parent-teacher conference. Mrs. Meyer, I'm really sorry to bother you. I wouldn't have called if I had a choice, Miss Charles said. Oh, it's totally fine, Ariel's mother said. It's lucky that I've booked a midnight flight. Ariel irritably laughed at her mother's lie, for she knew none of the transportation in this world could reach where her mother was heading to. Miss Chow cleared her throat and fixed her glasses. I don't know whether you are aware of your daughter's over-obsession with fairy tales. I'm not saying that fairy tales are bad for kids, but I think Ariel's case is slightly unusual. On hearing this, Mrs. Meyer responded with her lips pursed and eyes narrowed. I know it may be different from the culture where you were brought up, Miss Charles said, making aware of Mrs. Meyer's golden hair and dark blue eyes. But I believe this kind of obsession will only provide her the tendency to escape from reality. And worst of all, she paused, encouraging the habit of lying. Her eyes cast towards Ariel, who was playing with her fingers. Lying? Mrs. Meyer, Ariel here has been telling her classmates that Neverland and what's that place called? Ah, yes, Wonderland truly exists. This morning, she even told them that she has managed to hatch a fairy out of a piece of rock, she underlined, and I believe her hobby is affecting the other kids as well. One of her classmates placed a bowl of milk near the windowsill to give a gift to something called brownies yesterday. Forgive me for saying this, Miss Chow, but I don't think this can prove that my little girl is flying, Mrs. Meyer said. Miss Chow's eyes were bulging with intensity. The facts are pretty clear, Mrs. Meyer. Fairies aren't real. How could you be so certain that fairies, Mrs. Meyer stressed on the correct pronunciation of the word, don't exist? Miss Chow's frown deepened, while recalling how Ariel too corrected her pronunciation of the word fairy that very morning. I see where Ariel got that from, she mumbled under her breath. She forwarded her body with her elbows on her desk. Mrs. Meyer, may I suggest you send Ariel to a child therapist? I'm sure it will be a great help to her. I have some good recommendations. A child therapist? Mrs. Meyer raised her voice. Ariel's perfectly normal. I don't see any reason to do so. I wouldn't describe Ariel as perfectly normal. Miss Chow's speed of nagging accelerated. By means no harm, she's making things up. She's sorry, excuse me. She paused in mid-sentence, extended her arm, trying to reach for a mug to ease her sore throat. Whereas Mrs. Meyer inwardly wiggled her fingers, which produced a jingle that only she and Ariel could hear, and waited for their friends to do the rest of their job. Huh, Miss Chow gazed at the empty corner of her desk. She swore it was there 1 minute ago. Her eyes scanned across the area, and suddenly, there! Her mug somehow popped up from nowhere. She did not recall herself putting it in that position. Well, I'm almost 60, I forget things, she convinced herself. She tried to grip the handle of the mug, but strangely she couldn't. It was not because her arms were too short or it was too far for her to reach. It was the mug. It automatically shifted further and further away from her whenever her fingers were near. Then the strangest thing happened. A pair of arms and legs grew from the mug. It ran around the desk, jumped off, and began to dance break dance on the floor. Miss Chow's jaw dropped. Her eyes became as wide and round as ping pong balls, and they ping-ponged all over the place, chasing after the running mug. They were too busy to notice Ariel and her mother were confidently chuckling about her reaction. After she forcefully wiped the lenses of her glasses, Miss Chow was astonished to find everything back to normal. The mug was sitting at the location where she first placed it, and there were no limbs on either side of it. She wondered if Mrs. Meyer and Ariel saw that weird scene too, but when she noticed the plain expressions on their faces, she forced herself to forget and pretended that nothing had happened. What was I talking about? Ah yes, Mrs. Meyer, you don't understand. Miss Chow attempted to resume the conversation, but it was soon cut off by an operatic voice singing Hallelujah. The sound was neither transmitted from next door, nor from the corridor, nor from her smartphone inside the cabinet. It came from nowhere except one place, the painting behind her back. In the painting, there was a man who appeared to be in his 60s and dressed in Victorian clothes. He was singing Hallelujah. His mouth was obviously moving, and his eyeballs were shifting right and left. It's Miss Chow pointed at the painting, and her index finger trembled fiercely. See, she gobbled the rest of the words. Yes, Mrs. Meyer smiled. I am listening. It didn't take long for Miss Chow to dismiss that. We will talk about this next time, she said, closing the door while the performance of the man behind her kept going. Laughter immediately exploded from their mouths the moment Ariel and her mother were released from Mr. Chow's office. Do you think Miss Chow is still searching for the ostrich? Ariel giggled. Well, let's hope she finds it. Mrs. Meyer giggled too, and with a snap of her finger, the two vanished in a flash.